कोई ज्वाइन ही नहीं हुए हैं। हाँ, हो गए हैं। हेलो। हेलो। ग्रुप में हेलो, कैन यू हियर मी?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
वही तो प्रॉब्लम है यार, एक एक करके आ रहा है ना।
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, Pooja.
हेलो पूजा, एम आई ऑडिबल?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
ऑडियो वीडियो ना
ऑडियो वीडियो दोनों
ऑन ऑन क्यों रखा है?
So Shiva, welcome. Your mic is mute. Shiva, you can hear me. Shiva, your mic is mute.
सर कुछ और ले लेगा before
Hello.
Yes. You can hear me?
Yeah, Smith. Yeah, Smith, I can hear you.
All that is okay. Yeah. Let's start.
Good morning, everyone. I request all the attendees to please switch off their audio and video mode for better communication so that we can start and end the webinar without any interruption. Please switch off your audio and video mode. Starting with, so as we all know, writing is the most important means for communicating and scientific work. Research and publication complement teaching and training in clinical care and public health works, which is the base for today's webinar. With this, I would like to invite Dean Dr. Sudhir Pawar, sir, to address all the attendees about the webinar. Sir, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good morning, everybody, and welcome everyone to this webinar by Department of Orthodontics, Vimta College of Dental Science, Lai Chhattisgarh. I extend a warm welcome to the speaker of this webinar, Dr. Kumar. An excellent speaker. I congratulate the Department of Orthodontics for getting the speaker for such a high repute of this particular webinar on how to get better at scientific publications. And as we all know, the scientific publications are at the postgraduate level, all the students are trained to carry out research, maybe in a little smaller version, in the form of dissertation. But carrying out this dissertation and to publish the findings of dissertation, all the PGs must know that it is the work that they do. Unless they publish the work that they have done, they will not get any credit for doing that particular work. So from that point of aspect, from that point of view, this particular webinar will be very useful to all the postgraduate students and even to everybody else, even the faculties and all the students and all the aspiring postgraduates. Because this is something that one has to do individually. One has to enter into it voluntarily. One has to take it up as a challenge and start writing down the work that you have done on your own. And particularly if you are successful in publishing your work on the international platform, it really exhibits your talent. It's a sort of entry into the creative fields of writing. It emphasizes the specialization. It emphasizes the competence of the author. It brings the credibility to the author if the research is published in journals of international repute. Not only that, it improves the career prospects and so many other things, including getting sponsors for the research and everything. And for the research that is published, you get citations, and the more one gets citations, the more is the popularity of the author. And in our particular health fields, the research that is published in any form will also be useful to the society, because it will certainly contribute to some new treatments techniques, new materials, new methodologies. So from these points of view, publishing your research is most important. It has a number of advantages. So I think our speaker will highlight us about all how to get your research published to that level where one hopes to get all these advantages of publishing your research. So I once again welcome Dr. Shiv Kumar, and I suppose all the participants are lucky to hear him, and they will really enjoy this presentation and will look forward to publishing their work in some of the journals of international repute. So I welcome everybody, and with that, hand over back to coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Sumit Gandhi, convener of webinar, to introduce our speaker, Dr. Shiv Kumar Arunachalam. Sir, please.
Thank you, Harsha. Good morning, one and all. Welcome for the webinar on how to get scientific publications, improve your scientific publications. It's indeed an honor for me. It's my privilege to introduce our guest speaker for today, Dr. Shiv Kumar. Dr. Shiv Kumar, who has always been my mentor, he has been my very good friend, and I fondly call him Seva Bhai. He's a person with a good academic knowledge, excellent clinical skill, and most importantly, very humble attitude towards all his colleagues. So I welcome Dr. Shiva Kumar. Dr. Shiva Kumar, he did his graduation from the Tamil Nadu MGR Medical University in the year 2000. He was awarded gold medal for achieving first rank in the Tamil Nadu state for the same. Thereafter, he went and pursued and completed his MDS in orthodontics from Manipal College of Dental Sciences, Manipal, in the year 2004. He went ahead and he achieved the prestigious MOT RCS Edinburgh in 2006. It was followed by fellowship of Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh in 2016. He has good academic and clinical experience of over 16 years. Sir has published many articles in index journals, both national as well as international, till date. He has been peer reviewer in many of the journals like American Journal of Orthodontics, Dentofacial Orthopedics, England Orthodontics, Journal of World Federation of Orthodontics, Journal of Indian Orthodontic Society, as well as World Federation of Orthodontics. Shiva sir was felicitated as outstanding reviewer for his American Journal of Orthodontics, Dentofacial Orthopedics in the year 2016. Currently, Dr. Shiva Kumar, he is associated and he is working as Associate Professor, Division of Children and Community Oral Health Care Center, School of Dentistry, International Medical University in Malaysia. On behalf of Sanjay Rungta Group of Institutions, Ultra College of Dental Sciences, and my Department of Orthodontics, I heartily welcome Dr. Shiva Kumar and invite him to start his presentation. I also hope that the participants find this webinar helpful and they can enrich their knowledge to take a coordinated and organized efforts to pursue their journey in the publications. Thank you once more. Dr. Shiva Kumar, welcome. We'll start with the presentation.
Thank you, Sumit, and thank you, Dean sir, for arranging this wonderful platform. And it's indeed a great platform to share the knowledge and share the experiences. So mostly my webinar today will be will depend on my experiences as a reviewer for some of the journals and also being an author for some of the journals. So with that introduction, maybe I'll get on with the topic. I'd like to share the slides now. So the title of the topic is How to Get Better at Scientific Publications. All of us know, except for the beginners who are in this field of research and academia, we know that the process of preparing the manuscript and to have it accepted by the journal is a daunting task. It's not easy, as easy as it looks. It might look when somebody is publishing the articles, but a lot of hard work goes into that. And as we know, in today's time, COVID times and before also, the high impact journals accept less than 10% of the articles submitted to them. So now 30 to 50% of the submissions are rejected before they even reach the peer review stage. So much rejections are there, even reaching before the peer review stage. So our contemplation here, and so whatever efforts we have put in preparing the manuscript, at least at the first point, we need to get over to this peer review stage and get the reviewers' comments, which will help us to refine our work. So let's get on with this presentation. First, I would like to declare there is no potential conflict of interest in this presentation, and also the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely mine. And I've taken from data from some resources which I'll be acknowledging alongside the slides. So what do you think, the main reasons for the manuscript to get rejected? And if you can notice from one of the authors and medical writers, he noticed that the quality of writing is below the publishable standards. Of course, the scope, when you're submitting the articles or research to some journals, the scope is very important, which often we neglect and we try to submit whichever is, very popular journal, something like that. So very importantly, we need to go back and read the scope of the journal. Accordingly, if we try to submit it, maybe the chances are very high. The second one is quality of writing. So this webinar, I'll be dealing with this particular aspect of quality of writing to give some advice or guidance, so that maybe I would be happy if some of the young researchers who are into this field or maybe who are doing postgraduate and undergraduate research, I might feel happy if they get some benefit out of this. So again, there are other reasons for rejection. So the most important one, what we are looking here, is quality of writing. So research that is publishable, right? So one of the most important thing before we start writing, we are actually, except for the review articles, all the original articles and the research-based articles, we are going to do some research, right? So at the first point of contact, we need to develop a proper protocol for the research and do the research properly. So when you have the groundwork properly done, then only it merits for your proper writing. So we need to ask ourselves questions like this: will my research be a groundbreaking work in this field of study, or will it change the existing outlook and view of the subject, or is it cutting edge, or have I produced a ton of evidence that backs up the claim from all possible angles? All these questions are very critical and curious enough to get back to your thinking. And if you have answered all the above questions, if you're able to answer yes to above all the questions, then you have the path cleared to produce a candidate research and a subsequent article. So before starting research, we need to ask ourselves whether the contemplation, what we are trying to do, whether they are fitting into the today's context and comprehensively and contemporarily. So we ask ourselves have we done something new? Really new? Because a lot of competition is there. Old research doesn't hold good. And is there anything challenging in your work? We ask ourselves again, anything challenging in that particular research? Then will your research influence other researchers? This is very important. And your conclusion will dictate. It gives a statement to the other researchers to carry on further forward. And your research should be a platform for others to do the study, either to reproduce in a better format or to continue with your results. Research is always a continuum. So it doesn't end where you stop your research or where you contemplate your research. And the fourth one you have to ask yourself is, have you provided solutions to some difficult problems? So locating the difficult problems day in and day out, we'll be encountering a lot of problems, a lot of issues in our clinical, clinical management of the patients. All those things, we gather the ideas, formulate the data in our mind, and then finally come up with this research ideas. So if you can answer yes to some or all of the above questions, then it is good time to share your research and start the preparation for your manuscript. So it comes with a very organized flow. You start with a good research, and when you have contemplated, when you have finished your good research, then before start preparing the manuscript, what all things you need to put in your thoughts, they all matter. So the first thing I want to introduce here is some concept called hot topics. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this term or heard in the literature. Very few literature is there in this hot topic phenomenon. It's nothing but any research area that many people will find interesting. So in our own specialty, we'll have something, something of characteristics which are puzzling, or some unsolved mystery, or a new technology, or a problem that may need some better solutions. So all these things, occupy that hot topic phenomenon, and we try to formulate a protocol, and we try to think beyond our scope of understanding to do a research and get an idea about it. Now, ability to identify hot topics. So how to identify the hot topics doesn't come in a flow. Just like that, we cannot think, okay, preposition is a hot topic, or something like mini screw dental implants in orthodontic, not like that. So you need to identify these hot topics. There are ways to do that. I'll be showing the next slide. So that identification helps you to make decisions what to study. It's very important. And also obtaining funding the research. Dean sir was telling rightfully just a few minutes back about the funding, which is very important. And your hot topic, the topic what you're going to study, is going to really meter out that to get the funding. And funding is another big topic, getting external grants and internal grants. Whenever you get an external grant from external parties, there are a lot of parties from outside, then it adds value to the research as well. Identify top researchers in the field. So when you get to choose a topic, you go around and identify who are all the pioneers in this field, and who are also doing similar research in this field elsewhere in the world. So that gives you an idea to collaborate also, which is very important aspect. We need to really look into it. Sometimes we stay in a small well, like to do some research and try to go for publication. You need to come out of the box, out of the well, and try to do better research. Find important publications related to the topic, and also explain to others why your work is important. This is very important. When you can answer to others why this work is important continuously in a repetitive manner, you are actually, curiously pondering into your own research area and getting better ideas to conduct the research as well. So hot topics, they can be identified. For example, you must be familiar with Web of Science portal, which has got the usage data of scientific articles in real time. So if you go to the usage area, you can identify in a particular specialty, you get to see which articles or which subject matter or subject area being largely being accessed and approached. Those are definitely going to be the hot topics. Then you have a lot of publications in bibliometrics, so they provide bibliographic data and citation data. So these bibliometrics also help top 100 cited articles or something like that. And very often we come across like a list of most read articles from the journals database in real time. So this also gives a clue, and also going to the abstract of recent articles also gives a clue. And more importantly, I would pitch on this, the final point, systematic review papers, which are very helpful. All the systematic reviews, very hardly in dentistry, very few systematic review or meta-analysis papers have a final conclusion. Okay, this is the best evidence. Most of the time, they're because of the lack of evidence, they are concluding like, you need more evidence. So more evidence means more clinical trials, more prospective trials, more research into a particular topic. So this is where we can pick, okay, this thing is not done properly. Maybe this is the particular subject matter. I can take it, I can study it, and maybe I can apply funding from external agencies as well as internal agencies, and it's going to be a really good research and subsequent publication. So my recommendation to the researchers would be first identify the type of articles which receive the most citations and the fewer citations also. Of course, we should not ignore the fact that beyond citations also you have good articles coming up which may not reach the citation levels because of certain issues. I'm not going to discuss on that part, but the predictors of citations, if you really think, whenever the articles are getting cited, you'll see a mix of researchers, like some from highly ranked universities. So the collaboration is the standpoint here. If you can get a real collaboration from international universities and who is doing the real research, and you convey your interest and they can collaborate with you, those articles which comes out of those research will have a upper value to get published, and more cited references and more co-authors into your study, and also meta-analysis helps for a better platform for publishing. Now the yardstick is like your research is not complete until it has been published. This we need to be very clear. It's just not like your research is done, the work is finished. No, until it is published, until then we pursue along the process to get it published. So when you say when you're done the research, now you've done the research, you have selected a good topic, everything is done meticulously, now really are you ready to publish? You have to look into factors when you are not ready. So when you're not ready, you present some outdated work, right? You present your research actually was not focused on something contemporary. It has already been something been really experimented, and your work is outdated already, and you've done a lot of time spending time for this work, but it's a frustration again. Now, duplication of published work, this is something like an integrity issue. This cannot be done. An incorrect conclusion is because of our perspective is the researcher perspective is maybe wrong or skewed. So we need to have a clear idea what we are concluding from the research. So if these aspects are there, then you're really not ready to produce an article. So we get away with those things, and opposite of all those things, you'll be ready for publication. So what are these? First things first. It's a very famous statement, right? First things first. So first thing, it's like you make a good first impression with your title and abstract. Very important aspect. If your title and abstract are not proper, then nobody is going to read the article, or when you submit the journal, the editor or the reviewer is not going to give due importance. So that first impression is always important, the title and the abstract. So the title should not be deceptive. Very important. It should not be deceptive. You are giving a title, but the description is totally different. Means it's give you a very wrong impression to the reviewer and the editor. So it may not go through, even though the research is good. And the title should be focused and specific. It should be focused and specific, and it should have a clearly defined beginning and end. For example, this is an article which is going to be published in November issue 2020 of Journal of Dentistry. It's going to be published. So if you see this title, the ability of dual whitening anti-caries mouth rinses. So there is a beginning. To remove extrinsic staining and enhance caries lesion remineralization. So there is an end, and it is focused. It's very specific now. It's an in vitro study. So such titles, which will grasp the attention of the editor and also the reviewer. So it gives a positiveness to the reviewer. For me, when I see this title, it looks really interesting. Let me accept this abstract and let me go for review. Something like that, right? Making dissertation publishable. In India, we have a lot of institutions with the postgraduate program. A lot of research is coming every year, day in and day out. But how many of them are really getting into the, good publications in good channels, which will credit to the author, the researcher and the faculty and the department, and overall the university, school and the university, college and the university as a whole. So most dissertations in a study, it was noted that most dissertations, even in abroad, not only in our country's side, but even in abroad, most dissertations are never published, and some dissertations do not appear publishable at all. So we need to think why it is not, it doesn't hold the value. What is that missing in that? So planning for a publishable dissertation is a crucial thing we need to think over and make it merit for everyone. So the mistake we do is like we always view the dissertation or the student views the dissertation as an exercise or a learning experience during the program. It's like, a learning experience, how to do research. No. Here, in the dissertation, when we are contemplating the study research, the human subjects are involved very often, right? Apart from lab studies. So they are involved, and many hours of faculty time and student time is invested in the whole process. So the project must have a meaningful, publishable contribution. If there is no meaning in that, then there is no point in doing just for the sake of requirement. Already you are spending time for that. So we make sure we take an extra mile to do that. And the main problem probably in all the dissertation, most of the dissertation is poorly implemented designs, or you produce a predictable, well-known findings. Again, it goes back to the same question, outdated data or outdated, concepts. So with this focus, my focus is to have the young researchers how to get into these small studies or dissertations they do for a better writing and publishable units. Now, when we say try better writing, so as we know, all of us are non-native English speakers, right? And when our script goes to an English-speaking person, definitely, their standard of level of understanding the English and the grammatical contemplations, especially the active voice and passive voice and direct speech, everything matters actually. So every article, if you read about, how to write a better article, you'll see you write in active voice. Sometimes in some aspects, they say write in passive voice, something like that. So grammatically, we need to be very accurate and precise, as precise as any precision material. Okay. So if, for example, if you do a study, if you conduct a study, and if no one is able to read about it, is it going to make an impact? If you have a wrong English or wrong language, it's not going to make an impact. The answer would be resounding no. It's not going to make an impact. Now, writing is what makes science real and usable to others, right? We need to accept that fact. You've done excellent research, excellent study, everything is done meticulously, and even though the study could be a very simple concept, but it's the need of the hour. And if you're not able to produce in writing, you're not able to showcase that, that's a grave discrepancy there. So we need to overcome that. And especially in this fierce, I would say fierce academic competition now, so fierce that we have been hearing this word, publish or perish, right? This mantra, you can say, publish or perish. It applies to every level, even for a small student, a student who is pursuing a study, or to the faculty who is pursuing a study, or even for the institutional level, publish or perish. Institution look for good, index journals so that to increase the star rating, right? That's how we support the institution. That's our commitment and involvement as well. So it starts from the ground level. Institutions setting up avenues to train the students, train the faculty, every aspect, and we put our heart to do the research. Ultimately, it's going to the top level to raise your value. Your institution is growing, you are growing, in fact. So now, as a young researchers, these habits, it's very demanding. Good, right? I mean, developing good writing habits. So, for example, if you see the influential articles, when I say influential articles which have cites more than 100 or 1,000, you will see the component. If you read some articles which are having really, 1,000 citations, for example, articles in Lancet and everything, Lancet in Nature journals, you'll see they have a positive writing component. They always write with the reader in mind. So that's the knowledge as well, the skill we need to develop. How to write the reader in mind, not ourselves in mind. That's a mistake we make everywhere. So let's get on with some cues how to eliminate this, something which is clogging our mind, and how to get better at that. So before going on to that, let me describe some of the poor manuscript etiquettes. Okay, one is the first thing is take the lazy route and plagiarize. No more acceptable. It's a very serious research integrity issue. Plagiarize. Your entire career can be, really. Your entire career can be really. Sorry, can you switch off your mic? Somebody is speaking. Yeah, okay. So take the lazy route and plagiarize. So it's a very serious offense actually. So you need to be very mindful. When the article reaches the journal, the first thing they do is they check with the Authenticate software or other software from Turnitin. They check whether there is plagiarism issues or not, right? So if there is there, then they're going to blacklist your name, right? That is happening actually. As a reviewer, I can share with you. So you need to be mindful of that. Second thing, refuse to read the previous literature published in your research. You're writing a paper, but you're not reading properly the subject, the work, all the work which has gone before, and you're missing in that part, and only you are focusing on your self-imposed, addictions to the script. It's a very important thing. You need to acknowledge and disrespect previous publications. Never cannot do that. If you miss it, the reviewer is going to find out, okay, you have missed those important publication, and that will be a very strong clause for, even though the research is good, strong clause for rejection or go for major revision, right? And disregard guidelines to authors. So if you disregard the guidelines to authors, for example, I can share my experience. Whenever I get an article, first thing I'll see is I'll go to the reference. I'll just see how much intuitive or the authors are focused on preparing the reference section, whether they have put the proper full stops then and there, whether they put the colon properly, whether they have put the semicolon properly, whether they have put space between the semicolon and the number, whether there is capitalization for the first word, whether the authors are properly represented, conforming to the guidelines of the journal, right? All these things matter. So it gives a clue actually whether the author is really focused on this precision things, because it's really competitive to even to accept the journal. 10 articles out of 10 articles maybe I'll accept 1 or 2 at the most. So that's the state of affairs. So this, I don't want this reference to give a bad impression, right? So I'm just sharing with you this important point. Never disregard the last reference section. Okay, I'll come to this point later a while. Okay, good manuscript etiquettes. One of the good manuscript etiquette is always, always remember your reader. As I told you earlier, always remember your reader. So when you want to remember in what sense you are looking into it. For example, the reader is, or the reviewer or editor in that, for that matter, they're going to read the abstract. Okay, after title, they're going to read the abstract. So the key points in abstract is very important. If it is not clear or interesting, no one is going to read further. No one will read further, right? That's very important. The abstract should be crisp and very clear. And second thing you need to ask, okay, you have formulated the abstract. As a reader, you need to think what the reader is going to expect, or what am I about to read, right? So I, as a general reader, I'll say, okay, abstract is good. So what am I going to read? So that comes in introduction. It puts you in perspective. Okay, this is what I'm going to read. So the introduction should lay the groundwork actually. It should have a proper groundwork, no overburden. If you see the yesteryear articles, few years back articles, the introduction will be very lengthy, right? It will be very lengthy. But now if you see, they are crisp and short. Maybe I can quote an analogy here. When we were growing up, me and Dr. Sumit and everybody was growing up, we had this cricket test match and one-day matches. We used to sit relaxedly and watch the test match. And one day with little bit of anxiety and stress, we used to watch the test match. Then after that came the T20. So now T20 is the call, right? Everybody loves the T20. Why they love? They just want the information crisp and clear in a short time. Whatever they want to enjoy that moment, they're doing that. Same thing goes with publication also. You don't want to clog so many things in the introduction. It needs to be precise. You check all the papers currently coming, everything will be not more than 3 paragraphs. So to put that telegraphic concept into the introduction, it needs quite a lot of skill into that, right? We'll see that Casper rule later, how to put the introduction in a sequential stages. So third thing, second thing, writing and rewriting, playing the peer reviewer game, right? Writing and rewriting, there's quite an important concept, writing and rewriting. Always when you start writing, we are mired with, or you're clogged with our own concepts staying on to that. Sometimes we are not able to reflect upon ourselves, what we have written, and it's hard for us to, even for me as an author, if I write continuously for a few days, then next day I'm not able to really find out where I'm lacking or something like that. That you call that, it gets blocked. So whenever you write, you be aware of each word forming a sentence, and each sentence forming a paragraph, and each paragraph forming a section. It goes like that. Every word needs to be checked. So when you're doing that, you're actually editing, reading, editing, reading, editing, reading, editing, reading. Goes on, doesn't stop there until you get really a good output. Okay, and and every time I have also found that, when you read or edit in a different location, you do in your home at one particular area, and maybe after 1 week you read again in another area, it will give a different perspective to the whole lot of work you have done and how you can refine your writing. And also and also not only the location, the time point also matters. You write, you finish your script, everything, then don't immediately send to the journal in a hurry. No, always put it at rest, keep it for 10-15 days aside, don't do anything, just think like the website has closed or something like that, and be happy with that. And then you see after 15 days again you read the script, you'll find some small errors or some perspectives can be changed in the write-up, which will help. Definitely is going to help. The third important very good manuscript etiquette is do not give up. I have faced myself a lot of rejections, and some acceptance, hardly first time acceptance. And it's been for a while, more than 4 or 5 years, I have not directly, first go, never got accepted or never got accepted. It's all of rejections, then again trying to another genre, something like that goes on. The continuum goes on. So what I would like to see myself, or like as a young researcher in you, to not lose confidence. One thing is important. The reviewers are generally not as knowledgeable as you. The work is done by you. You are the sole authority, right? You can it's just how you translate your authority, the domains, everything what you've got into the write-up. That's where something is lagging. That's where we actually miss some point. I'm realizing that even with some experience, I'm still learning. And it's a learning process. It's a steep learning curve is there actually. So if you will be lucky first time you got accepted with some minor revisions, but not necessarily every time. Don't think as a discouraging unit, but that's the state of the affairs, and that's a practicality. We need to accept and we need to move forward. It should not be a discouraging moment. Okay. So this is one of the study published in nursing journal. Like, for example, they found that the writing with the reader in mind. If you really see here, the articles which have got more citations, right, more than 100 citation, most of them, 74% of them is written in with the reader in mind, and they are also high impact journals, right? So you can actually locate, if you can conspire all these thoughts into your mind and write the script with the reader in mind. And again, tell you, it's easy for me to tell, but it needs to be experienced and work out, and a lot of exercises there to do that, to get the best impact possible to your research. So abstract, when you see the abstract, I'll just go a snippet of all these things. So abstract, you just need to, is it really a summary? Does it include the key findings? Or you need to check, is it in appropriate length, something like that. There are a few individual journals will have different requirements, but some things are common. Like for example, the voice here, active voice. For example, some researchers showed previously that smoking can lead to lung cancer. But the passive voice is usually we write like this. It was previously demonstrated that lung cancer can be caused by smoking. Now the better version of English here is the active voice, which is showed previously that smoking can lead to cancer. So this we are always used with this passive voice style, every time when we see. But when you give an active voice, it connects to the reader, and it goes for a persuasion to make the reader read your article. Right? So that kind of energy is needed over there. So introduction, I was telling, right, how to, the cricket analogy I gave to crisp everything. So the move one always, whenever see an introduction in any good publication, you'll see this territory. establishing the territory, the groundwork over there, establishing importance of the topic, doing your previous work or others' previous work. Okay, this is where you establish. The first para will go like this. Second para mostly identifying a niche. Niche in sense indicating a gap in the knowledge. Okay, you need to indicate there. The reader needs to know. Okay, why am I reading this? Right, what I am about to read. Right. So something is missing. Oh, all these researchers have done this, but something is missing here, and this researcher wants to do on that, or he wants to study on that, or he has studied on that. So that puts everything into perspective, right? Then he goes on reading occupying the niche, that is listing the, you are going to list the hypothesis and the statement, why you are going, what is the purpose of the study, all those things. This is famously called as CARS model, create a research space. Okay, so this is about introduction. And this is one of the most challenging aspect of the part of the paper. And some of the things I already discussed here. I mean, we need to ask ourselves these questions: why, how, and does. Okay, why well-written English set the tone for the paper and catch the reader's interest. Everything going again and again towards the readers, context only, and how it's going to be effective. All those things. Okay. Now, maybe I would like to show this website. This is one of the very good website. Many thanks to this person, John Morley, from the University of Manchester, and he has made it available free of cost to this website. It's a splendid, it's really wonderful, especially for non-native English speakers, okay, for us to see. And every aspect, if you see the tagline here, introducing your work, referring to sources, describing methods, reporting results, and discussing the findings and writing conclusion. Every aspect of an article, he has given some guidelines how to frame the sentences. Okay, it takes a little bit of exercise. I would say once you are done with the manuscript, once you have written the manuscript, before sending to journal, you see this website and see whether you can revise. Not in the first go, okay? If you're checking this website and seeing, arranging the context or the write-up based on whatever the website is telling, then it becomes a little not tidy, it's very difficult to complete later. So probably you give a effort properly arranging everything, all those things, then finally you go to the website, then you can really make a better contribution to the clear writing. Okay, so now it looks like this. For example, you can write like this: the figure 1 presents the summary statistics for. The figure 1 provides an overview of. So the language, what they are using, right, that matters. Where you want to tell show, where you want to tell compare, where you want to note present, where you want to note provide. Just a guideline. We have a whole lot of arena to experiment ourselves and expand the horizon here, but still it gives an outline. For example, the pie chart above shows, okay, some of the main characteristics of the breakdown of something like that. Top half of the table shows the breakdown of something like that. So these are different ways of writing the tabulation or the result part, something like that. So the result part can be written like this. When you want to project, okay, results of the results of the correlation analysis, the themes identified in these responses are set out in table. So you see the language or set out in table 1 or presented in table 1 can be compared in figure 1, something like that. So it's a very useful website, actually speaking. So maybe one important thing, one message or one benefit you get this out of this webinar, I would request the young researchers to go to this website and learn some concepts into that. And okay, so writing conclusions. Am I audible, Sumit?
You're audible. You're audible, sir.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Your screen slightly went off. Okay, now it's okay. So the writing conclusions. Can you switch off the mic? Yeah. So writing conclusions, you have like this, this study is set out to something like that. So I just picked up certain things. It's a big document. If you see the PDF version, it's a very big document. Each and every aspect can be explored. Okay. Now, you must be knowing, whoever submitted the journal, you must be familiar with this term ICMJE, right? International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. So they have the guidelines actually, and most of the journals today, they follow their regulations and guidelines. Okay, you will see invariably in all the guidelines to others, quoting reference to this particular organization. Okay, and they have their own, principle to how to formulate the title page, abstract. So as a beginner, I would request everyone to go to this website. It gives a very clear information, and to formulate the manuscript. So it does the conflict of interest disclosure form. So currently all the journals, most of the journals actually in the industry journals and medical journals, they follow this conflict of interest disclosure forms. And another from NLM PubMed is this title, Citing Medicine 2nd edition. Okay, this also gives, I told you the references where I look, where the reviewers look, right?
Hello.
Where the reviewers look, right? So this Citing Medicine has got whole lot of, if you check in the PubMed, you'll get the full details, each and every aspect, how the simple article needs to be quoted, how the conference proceeding needs to be quoted, how the, opinion pieces, personal opinion needs to be quoted, how the digital media needs to be quoted, how the advertisement needs to be quoted, how a digital or online article, everything is still clearly explained, and it matters. Okay, if we just cannot put some reference and get away with that, because it's going to give a very bad impression. So this is another important resource to look after. Then the cover letter, most of the time we ignore this fact, we ignore this cover letter, we just write something, but this is the cover letter which is going to go for the editorial office. Okay, the editor is going to see, or the associate editor is going to see. Doesn't come to the reviewer, but it's to the editor or the associate editor or the section editor. So there are different formats to write the cover letter. Usually I do like this. I put my name, then the editor's name, then the date, then dear so and so, I am pleased to submit an original article entitled this thing for consideration of publication in the journal. Okay, the interest and stimulate to undertake this study. Okay, why? You need to put that why over there to get the attention of the editor. Okay, so again, you are going to next level. In this manuscript, we quantify, we assess, we have done this thing, something what is done in the study. You're going to give a short summary. It will not be very lengthy. Okay, just a precise one sentence composition over there. So this manuscript has not been published. It's not under consideration of public. You need to give this. Another important mistake what some people can do, sending the manuscript to 2 or 3 journals. And I can assure you, I can tell you, same reviewer will be seeing sometimes the same article. I have experienced that myself. So never do that. If the reviewer writes back to the editor, then you are blacklisted. Okay, so this is one of the important policy of the journal, and that too in these competitive times. So that's one thing. You need to disclose that you are not sent to other journals, and there is no conflict of interest to disclose. If there is a conflict of interest, you need to indicate here. Okay, there's nothing wrong in disclosing the conflict. There are guidelines to do that. So maybe if there is a conflict for example, the commissioning editor may be sending some articles to the same journal. So they will put there is a conflict of interest there. So it's up to the editor to look into that fact. Okay, so cover letter is important. And okay, so coming to mind your reference, again getting back to the references, cite the main scientific publication on your work is biased. So when you're putting the references, maybe when you're doing the dissertation or research, you'll have a lot of references, right? When you do that review, the review part, you get a lot of references, but you need to pick which are more important and more relevant to the context, right? So that's very important. And sometimes we see a lot of references going on here and there, which is totally non-contextual and not related to study at all. So you ensure you fully understand the material you're referencing and that it's supposed to work in the way you think it does. And keep self-citations very, very important. Okay, you've done, say for example, I've done research in particular field. I've got 4 or 5 studies. Again, the next study is similar to the same concept, but at a different perspective. So I cannot put everything in my articles to get a better citation for my, that gives again bad impression. If it is really contextual, okay, but it should not be just like that. Your name needs to be there in the reference so that you get, you get your H index increased. That okay, maybe you can look how the H index is calculated. You need to avoid that, and excessive citation needs to be avoided. So lens of a reviewer: critically read your completed manuscript with the lens of a reviewer. So the message here is, whenever you are writing a manuscript, you behave like you are a reviewer and you are starting to review your own script, and that comes with some kind of mental cognizance, and it's a poorly written scripts or grammatical errors, whatever we have discussed here. And another important thing: seek informal review from an experienced colleague. Okay, this is very important, which we miss actually. Sometimes we don't do that. So it's better always take your time, take their time, actually take help from them, your colleague, or from other department, even some other field. Okay, not even related to your particular speciality, even a medical person who can read and see the flow of the script, that will be very helpful. So always have a challenge test. Ask, so what? Why should anyone read your writing? Very important question you need to ask yourself. Why? If I made a publication, if I've written a manuscript from a survey, you need to think how it's going to help the readers, right? That's the most important point. So some of the things what I experience is when I want to write to the editor, I'll be telling, okay, insufficient statistical. One of the important things, sample size, whether we are having adequate sample size. We cannot take shortcuts in that. We cannot take shortcuts. It will be identified by the journal. We cannot put some effect size and calculate. No, it needs to be very authentic and personalized to that study. So insufficient statistical power and topic not in there. So many things are there. Avoid black lens spelling errors. All those things needs to be avoided. Poor statement of hypothesis. So it's like burning the midnight oil, writing a script, not an easy task at all. The person who writes, he knows the heaviness and the work, really put into that. And he becomes the first author, of course. The person who writes becomes the first author. So I'm not going to the authorship controversies and details here. So you must have heard of this expression, can't see the wood of the trees. So what do you see that, reviewers always, the author, the manuscript writer, he always looks his script as a tree. Okay, he's looking at the script as a tree, but the reviewer is actually parachuting inside. Okay, he's going and seeing whether it has got the wood in it. So what is a reviewer looking for? We need to see from your manuscript. This all happens after formulating a draft version. Okay, when you formulate a script conforming to the guidelines, then you look what is the reviewer going to look in your script. Right? So usually, as I review a journal, probably the first reading, for example, Dr. Sumit has sent me an article. I'm going to, on the first reading, I see the abstract, and abstract is okay. I accept the submission, submission to the editor that I'm going to review. Then I do the first reading. So I just look for a bird's eye view, like there is a problem with the data science, that problem with the ethics also I'll check, integrity issues. Okay, problem with the presentation, spelling and errors are there. Second reading, I don't directly, we don't usually directly go for rejection or major revision. Second time, again, I read the same principle after a few days, again reading. That's where you're actually getting into the core matter, subject matter. Is the research original, novel, and important to the field? This is the main question we'll be asking. And the editor's comments will be like, it will be always in for which the author is not able to see. So, but it will be very specific to the editor based on editor's checklist. So whatever the criticism or, positive points, I'll be noting to the editor, clearly telling, okay, this is a novel idea worth inviting major revision, right? See comments to authors. Why I wrote these major revisions, I'll be giving details to the authors. So editor will have a checklist like this. For example, is the English satisfactory? satisfactory. Number 6 point is English satisfactory. So some kind of they'll have the originality, whether there is originality, or the reviewer checklist. Actually, this one. So reviewer as a reviewer, different journals will have different checklists. ATO will have American Journal of Orthodontics will have a different checklist than the Anglo Orthodontics. So something like that. How is the originality, scientific quality, significance of findings? So these are the originality comes here. Nothing, anything. If something is not original, it's not going to merit at all. No point in doing the study at all, right? So authors also, you have some ground rules how we describe to the authors. Okay, I'm not going into this. So ultimately, we give major or minor revisions. Okay, why there is a major revision and minor revision. Again, you need to check. The revision does not guarantee a publication. Okay, does not guarantee a publication. Okay, now the final topic of this webinar is about institutional and researcher collaboration. I was talking about collaborating with the institutions, collaborating with the different authors, and from different universities. When you have a good idea, okay, this is the idea I want to do research, and you need a proper backup plan. You need a proper backup. You need to research that concept and see who are all doing. Somebody is doing a related topic. You need to contact them, and if they respond to you for some collaboration, it helps for funding. Okay, funding is very important. And okay, so as a university, the university need to have a research. From the university's perspective, if you can say, research intensive environment, right? So there should be a rigorous instruction, research design and methods, first of all, to all the faculty and students. Exposure to large projects in progress, always multi-center. We have a lot of institutions in India. You can have multi-center projects, and the students needs to be exposed to that multi-centric trials and projects, which gives a perspective to them as they grow up into this academic world, and a culture in which publication is expected and demonstrated. To get that culture going on, which can be, demonstrated, and faculty with strong experience in peer review and publication also matters. And then, as a researcher, as a young researcher, if you can say you have another 10, 15, 20 years of research, workplace, we need to find research niche or research areas. Okay, we need to find a topic or something which you can do research in continuum. Okay, continuum. You do one research, then you stop and go to another topic. It's going to waste your time. So you pick some particular topic and you see, okay, this topic is a really hot topic and not much things have been studied here. Maybe that's the area you can select yourself. Stay away from crowded or overly competitive areas again. Look at the most promising research and assess you see whether it can make an impact, and look at the other players and judge whether you can compete. Very important. I'm not telling in a wrong sense that you want to compete with others, something like that. But look at the other players. Okay, this particular university in Germany is doing this particular research. So whether your research, what you're going will be, meeting the standards, and it can stand time, whether it can match with their time point, everything. So all those things matter, because it should not go official and it should not go rudimentary, right? So some of the areas the institution can have kind of research areas or research clusters, you'd say, in each aspect, particular speciality. The institution can choose particular areas where people can explore further and do research. For example, lab science, for example, population studies, that can be a research area. So all population related studies can be grouped together to form a unit, to form a faculty development area, and people can work on that. Those are research clusters. Now the hurdles mainly for academic research environment could be openly we can tell the lure of salaries offered by the clinical practice and industry that are higher than those available to individuals pursuing a research academic career, right? It's quite obvious. People who are in practice, maybe the salaries are very high than a person who is in academic field. But it's up to us to have a professional enlightenment, and research is a better place to do that. Right? Administrative demands associated with academic research area. So all these things we need to get equipped with that. As a young researchers, we need to be facing this, and we need to accept this and go forward. And reduction in funding available for us. We need to be mindful. Funding is not that easy. The demands that an academic research career places on work-life balance, that's also very important. We are spending a lot of time, lot of time writing and exploring the things, right? It's not like you see a patient, your patient is done with the restoration, everything, then you get charged for this. No, not like that. You're going to spend a whole lot of time into that. A lack of well-trained and well-supported mentors in academia also one of the hurdles. We need that, and maybe that could be one of the biggest aspiration for young researchers to take your stand on doing that kind of exposure to this kind of research and publishing. Another important thing, we are not very familiar with this role model and mentorship in research. Okay, this is a concept we have guides for our dissertation, so they can be our role model, so they can be our mentors also. So as a guide, the guide needs to be a role model, right? So guide it needs to exhibit these phenomena and these qualities in them to be a real role model. So institution needs to make way for that development and upliftment. Final thing, I'm about to finish the webinar. Here, the steps to organize your manuscript. You can see here, most of the time we start writing the manuscript, maybe from title or abstract, right? And that's not the way. Actually, it's done. It's quite an established concept here, proposed by one person from Elsevier, Angel Borja. So it says that figures a table is the first thing you can actually formulate. Okay, you need the writing about how you need to formulate the figures and tables because you have the data with you. So first thing to do is present the data in figures in tabular form. Then you go to the methods, then results, then discussion, then conclusion. Lastly, introduction. Okay, never start with introduction. When you all do this in a sequence, then you get a better perspective for the introduction, which is very important. Finally, only title, abstract, and keywords, right? So title, abstract, and keywords is coming late, and then finally acknowledgements and setting at the references. Okay, this is a style which you can experiment and try to do that. Can you switch off your mic, please? Yeah. Okay. Now the final slide. Just one. So the take-home message here is: conduct publishable research. We don't want any research waste, right? We don't want, university doesn't want a research waste going. Some universities spend some money also, and as a researcher, you are going to spend some money, and a lot of time is going to be invested. So conduct publishable research. Write manuscripts with the reader in mind. Very important skill actually. So it takes a while, but it's worth trying. Follow good etiquettes for writing. Of course, that belongs to the reader in mind. Take good support for English writing and vocabulary. Very important thing for Indian writers, and we need to take some support. We need a good English speaking person, or who is well informed with the language, or some support software system, or the what I showed you, the website, which can help for a better writing. So all these things are important. Do a strong peer review, with the colleagues, who are dependable, who are reliable. So you know that they are going to give a very clear criticism, constructive criticism. So take it, even if it is not constructive, also take it and explore and see. Maybe you are wrong sometimes. We are mired and we are clogged in our mind. Sometimes a person who is telling, oh, this is wrong, means we need to accept that. We cannot get away with that, right? So finally, think like a reviewer and re-edit and check the original version again. Go back and check the original version and re-edit. You'll get a better format. Submit your manuscript with all positiveness and glory, not in a negative thoughts, right? Always in a positive thought. Okay, my manuscript is going to get accepted. Okay, maybe that acceptance comes with some, might take a time, since you do with one rejection should not discourage. You need to have that perseverance. So cherish your own work. If you do not take care, Why should the journal? That's the question they'll ask. Okay, you need to be confident. You need to be self-confident about your own work. If you've done your groundwork, if you've done your research properly, I think we should fly in the sky. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with the knowledge of research in our field, in any field with the publications. There are few questions asked by the participants. I just want to convey that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One of the participants want to know that.
Sorry, I could not hear you.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I could not hear you.
Yeah. One of the participants asked, what is the difference between the PubMed menu and PubMed central articles, and do they contain the same marks to the respective authors?
Second question, what? Do they?
Do they contain the same marks to the respective authors?
I'm not sure about what they are referring to marks here.
I think they are
Points,
referring to
please.
points, Seva.
Points.
Abhishek, we have a category-wise points.
Okay.
Like in,
I'm not
DCI.
sure about the regulation, DCI exact regulation. If you get an article published in PubMed Central or PubMed, they will differ. But what matters to us is the indexing of the journal, right? Whenever it's indexed, when a journal is indexed, whether it is in PubMed Central or PubMed or anywhere else, or Scopus indexed, if it is indexed, that means when you publish an article in the indexed journal, if you put your name in Google Scholar, you will see your H index, okay? Or if you put in a Scopus journal, Scopus website, type your name in the Scopus website, you will see your H index. H index is something which gives, information like how many times our own articles are getting cited. So getting citation means if you're submitting an article to a non-index journal, they don't matter, they don't count actually. But nevertheless, saying that for a journal to come up, for us to bring up a journal, our own national journal, we need to produce articles to that journal also, having known these understandings. Okay. Am I able to answer the question?
Yes, sir.
Maybe the researchers or the young people, they need to check this H index. So they can set their account in Google Scholar or in Scopus, where if they have published 3 or 4 articles, they know every time when it is getting cited, their articles being cited in another journal, then its citation increases. H index can be, it increases from 1 to, so the main universities, they look for individual faculty H index.
Okay, sir. So next question is, can you enlighten us with the softwares about plagiarism and how to check it and its legal issues associated with it?
Yeah, most of the softwares are subscription based, okay? The one famous one is Authenticate from Turnitin. If you can check the website, sometimes institution will be sponsoring. You need not the individual person who needs to get the subscription, but the institution library, sometimes they will have this subscription. So you need to check with the librarian whether they've got subscription possibly for this Turnitin, Turnitin, Turnitin. So if you go to the website, you'll get information and all this. There are other softwares also, but suppose when we write the article, it's a good practice to upload our documents into the Turnitin software to check the plagiarism. Even though we quote the sentences from the some article and we refer this article, still it's not acceptable. Just Turnitin will pick up those articles and it will provide a similarity index, something like that. And for any journal, you need to have similarity index less than 20% possibly. It can vary between the journals. If it is more than that, that means same words, same sentences you have taken from another article, which is not acceptable, which comes under, plagiarism. There are other concepts in research integrity like falsification and fabrication. They are also serious issues which young researchers should avoid.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Next question is, so one of the candidates is in Filipino. So the person wants to know that he has finished his journal. So how can he get it published?
He's finished his article, right? Manuscript.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same rule follows. Okay, you need to check the English everything, and maybe what we think, like, first time we write everything is fine. Okay, it may not be. Take the wrong things. I mean, the criticisms first. Give it to your colleague and ask them to read. Take the not only constructive, sometimes opposite criticisms also. Take it and explore further how you can better the manuscript, and check which journal you want to send. See the scope of the journal, and then maybe you can submit. Give a try with one submission and see what are the, try to get above the peer reviewer stage, so that you can have the peer reviewer comments also, and it will be done.
Okay, sir. So there are many questions being asked, but I'm asking the most important ones. One of the question is how to do risk bias assessment in systemic review.
Okay, that's a whole lot of science. Okay, risk of bias. It's not context to today's presentation, but maybe I can give a small idea. When you are contemplating a systematic review, you need to do this risk of bias for individual articles. Okay, there are supporting softwares and guidelines from different resources. National Health Center in the US is also having a kind of tools actually. There are different tools, Rob Institute, so many tools are there for different types of studies. If your study is observational study, a cross-sectional study, or if your study is randomized controlled trials, different tools are there. So you need to pick the actual tool, and you need to read individual criteria under the tool, what actually those criteria define, and whether you need to match with individual studies. For example, why reviews are fit for the systematic review means each review needs to be clearly defined based on the criteria. So it's a risk of bias assessment. It's they need to do and experience that. Again, this will be under strong scrutiny by the reviewers whether you have done the proper risk of bias assessment.
Okay, sir. Sir, 2-3 common questions have been asked. What is the importance of UGC approved journal, and what is the importance of sequencing of the authors in any journal? Points and sequencing.
Points, I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not very familiar as of now.
Okay, sir. Then importance of UGC journal. Can you brief?
That also I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay,
I'm
sir.
not the right person to answer that.
Okay, sir. Rest, I think all of the questions have been covered. If anyone is having any more questions, can put in Dropbox, and you can directly ask to sir also.
Sure.
Harsha?
I think there, Shiva, sir, what is the, how you check plagiarism? What are the softwares which are available? I think that was one of the questions asked by one of my colleagues.
Yeah. I say when I write the article, right? I can check actually uploading my manuscript into the software. Okay. There is a software by Turnitin which is called Identicate. So when you upload it, maybe you need a subscription for that. Sometimes the library will be having the subscription, or you need to take individual subscription. I'm not sure about the trial subscriptions. Okay, maybe it should be there. So when they put the article, when they upload this article, immediately within the seconds, you will get data showing the similarity index, like how similar or where all you have taken the sentences, the resources, okay, including internet resources and other publications. So if your similarity index is more than 10% or 20%, then it's questionable. Okay, you may not get through the review process. So it gives an understanding before you submit your script to a journal. It gives an understanding where you stand. I'm not telling it's wrong, okay, to have a more similarity index. It's because what the journals are expecting now is to have our own writing, even telling the concept from another study. Even though we quote their references, some might argue, I'm quoting that particular reference as number 7. So I'm taking that sentence here. It's not acceptable now. We need to modulate that sentence with the same reference, possibly.
Maybe the question I
I think one more question. Ethical clearance required.
Sorry?
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Ethical clearance required.
Yeah, ethical clearance. Yeah, ethical clearance. I forgot to mention now. One of the important thing, the reviewers will look. For example, there are 2 types of clearance. One, you can get clearance for from the ethics committee, Another one is you can get an exception, right? For example, if you are doing some survey or something like that, the ethics committee in your organization or in your university can give an exception to the study. That means they don't need to have a clearance, but a statement is required. Okay, this study is exempted from ethical clearance. Okay, and that is required as part of the publication submission. So other studies, wherever there are human subjects or the lab studies or the animal experiments, they all require ethical clearance. Most of them will require ethical clearance. So I think the committee will know better what studies can be cleared. But it's quite a very strong, contextual in all the abroad universities. This ethical clearance is a very big thing, and even in our universities also nowadays quite very familiar with this concept. But there is a concept called exemption also. So some studies can have exemption. Like for example, as I told you, some surveys can have exemption. You don't need ethical clearance. Some online surveys, we need it. It's always a good practice to get the clearance. We know that it doesn't require clearance, but it's always good to apply to the university and get the exemption.
Okay, sir. Sir, there are certain indexing required for few journals, few articles. So can you throw some light on SNP index?
I'm not getting your point. Sorry.
Sir, can you
Taylor?
throw some light on SNP index? Somebody asked about SNP index, SNI.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Any other questions anybody wants to ask, please?
Sir,
Each indexing units will have their own regulations. Okay, you will have the rating for Scopus indexing different. Web of Science will be different. PubMed will be different. Okay, so these are all indexing. What you can say indexing units. Of course, PubMed is very large indexing unit, and you can some of the journals will be indexed in Scopus, and they won't be indexed in PubMed. So things like that, which we need to explore, and we can see those journals, which are, if you type your specialty in Scopus, you will see all the Scopus indexed journals on that specialty. Then you can choose the journal, which journal you want to submit. And then when you choose 3 or 4 journals, then next step you see the scope of the journal, whether that scope is fitting your study. And after checking the scope, you check the type of studies they accept, whether they accept short communication, whether they accept randomized control trials, systematic reviews, original articles, personal opinions, or experiences. So like that. So that goes like that. When you maybe this can be done before starting preparing after doing the research, before starting preparing the manuscript. So you can prepare the manuscript according to fitting to one particular journal possibly.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for answering the questions and enlightening us with the journals, publications, and its reviews. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, I need to ask one question. Sir, according to a reviewer or a editor journal, from that point of view, so which is better studies, in vivo or in vitro? What is catchy to a reviewer point of view? As you have told, abstract should be catchy and all. But there is some leaning towards the clinical study or some leaning towards
the strength is always if you really see more towards clinical studies. Okay, but having said that, there will be the studies are done in different phases sometimes. The last phase will be randomized control trial, or before that you need to do some prospective trial, something like that. So it depends on the subject. If no clinical study has been done in that particular subject, and you know that there will be a difficulty in getting ethical approval, recruiting the subjects, which may be little bit, ethically not moral to subject the patient to that particular intervention, then the next available thing is in vitro, right? So for example, a new material, a new material is in the market or the company is formulating, and you want to check the material, and you don't know the chemical factors or the corrosion factors of that particular something like that. So directly you cannot put in human subject. So ethics will ask there, the committee will ask there, how can you subject that? So what is the best way to do that? we do lab research, an in vitro study, or animal study. Okay, so but possibly the first step is lab study. You put you want to check the primer, self-etching primer, some new primer, which you don't know what are the chemical composition. The company is telling these are the composition, but you don't know very clearly if there is any hazardous things in that. Okay, or you want to check some bacterial contamination, or infectious rate or something like that. You want to do some culture studies first, cell culture studies first, and see this particular material is properly, there is no scope for any bacterial culture developing, something like that. So that's where the in vitro study holds good. And then you go on to this level, you do the in vitro study, no reviewer editor is going to offend to that. They'll see, okay, this is a new material, it's acceptable. And then you go on to the next level of animal study. Sometimes you want to check the enable integrity or something like that, animal study. Then you go to the next level of clinical studies. Now, a subject matter has already got some clinical studies in place, right? Already there are established standards and clinical studies, and then you're going to do a in vitro study on the same subject. It doesn't fit.
Okay, sir.
No, Shiva, then one last question.
Yeah.
It's like if a reviewer or reader has conflict with our publication, what are we supposed to do?
Sorry, if
The reader or the reviewer
okay.
has some conflict with the publication, what are the authors supposed to do? And how to answer back such conflicts?
No. If you say reviewer has a conflict of interest, when we receive the invitation to review, there will be a statement actually, whether you have any conflict of interest for this particular abstract or manuscript. Okay. So supposedly, morally, if I have a conflict of interest, for example, maybe I am part of the study. Okay. I am part of the study which the editor doesn't know, or I am on the background of the study. Maybe I have done some, some help with the research. And again, that same article has come to me, then it is a potential conflict of interest. So I need to declare there to the editor, okay, there is a conflict of interest. I cannot review this material, right? Same thing holds good with any editorial board members also. They need to declare. So once you declare, the editor might ask you in what level you are actually disclosing this conflict, how much you have contributed, something like that. So when you can defend to that, okay, this is where I have done this part. And if you can convince the editor it's not going to affect the review process, then it's let go. Okay. Otherwise, the reviewer will stop your review. I mean, they'll accept it and they'll go for another reviewer. And second thing, what did you ask? The reader's conflict of interest. Potentially there won't be any conflict. Where somebody is reading, they don't have conflicts. Already study is done by another person, so it's not going to inflict any, implicate any conflict of interest to the readers. Did I answer your question,
Thank you.
Smith?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Over to Harsha.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable and knowledgeable webinars. Now, I would like to invite Dean, sir, Dr. Sudhir Pawar, and Vice Dean, Dr. Jaideep Soor, to give away the certificate of appreciation to the speaker, Dr. Sivakumar Arunachalam. Sir, please.
Put up the certificate, no? Harsha?
Yes, sir, they are putting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for arranging this platform. I have met you sometimes before, maybe a few years ago.
Right.
Nice to have this. Hopefully, some people will get some ideas about publishing. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, it was an excellent presentation, and I think people will take care of. Even small things what you are told. Like writing a good title, good introduction, crisp and all. Many of them overlook these things, and then they say it got rejected. And guide can't do everything unless the student does. Here it's an individual individual work.
Yeah.
Person has to get himself engrossed, and take the credit and then enjoy the credit.
Yes.
Like-
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a quite satisfying, when you get the articles accepted. But at the same time, when it gets rejected, it's demoralizing. But we need to take on, further forward.
Correct. And now the technology is so easy, because I remember my first publication in 1986. I had to buy my typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I typed. And any mistake in that, I had to replace 5 pages of the manuscript.
Yes.
And that time in India, only one journal was there, Indian Dental Association, and it was PubMed that time.
Yes.
Vasant Kotak was the editor. Kotak was orthodontist only.
Yes.
Right. And I still relish that. I still enjoy that, my own publication, which I had typed on the typewriter. So it's
Yes,
like
sir.
one must enjoy your own
Yes.
work. As you said, your last slide, you must
Yeah.
cherish your work. No?
Cherish it. Exactly.
It was a wonderful presentation hearing you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank-
Thank you, Sudhir, sir. Thank you, Jadip, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now I'll take this opportunity to invite Dr. Javed Sodawala, Organizing Secretary of this webinar, for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Archana. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Dr. Javed Sudawala, working as a professor in Department of Orthodontics in the College of Dental Science and Research, Bhilai, feel privileged to extend this vote of thanks. First of all, I will like to thank our chairman, Shri Sanjay Rumta sir, Chairman Sanjay Rumta Group of Institutions, for giving us the opportunity to organize this wonderful webinar. Our college, in this difficult time of COVID, is continuously organizing webinars on different topics which have been uploaded on our college website. Next, I would like to thank our Dean, Dr. Sudhir Pawar sir, for all his immense help and support in organizing this webinar. I will also like to thank our speaker, Dr. Shiva Kumar sir, for agreeing to speak this wonderful topic. I hope your lecture will help a lot of students in taking medical nursing as a profession, which is really upcoming field. Nextly, I will like to thank all my organizing committee members, Dr. Sumit Gandhi, convener, Dr. Shaheen Hamdani and Dr. Harsha Malhotra, webinar coordinator, and Dr. Akash Kankar, Dr. Shehzad Ahmed and Dr. Ravi Teja Vadali, our student coordinator, for organizing this wonderful webinar. Lastly, I would like to thank all the delegates for participating in this webinar and making it a huge success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Javed. I think anyone wants to add anything can come up. Dr. Siva sir, it was really wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
And
Thank
it
you.
was
Sumit.
great listening to you. And I think everyone, now even the small tips which you have given will be very helpful, not only to me, my staff, and all the students also. Proceed towards the publication and do the publish in a good index journal, which is very important
Yeah.
for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit.
Then signing off for today.
Yeah.
Thank you and
Thank you, everyone.
we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
attendees.
everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.